It's always intriguing to hear someone introduce yourself. I actually use it in some of the classes I teach for people to write a quote unquote bio. Because if you want to find areas within yourself around, some hidden places or maybe not so hidden around where there's a sense of inadequacy or unworthiness, write a bio and you'll be like, "Oh, I don't, you'll find yourself." So I'm always intrigued to hear how, because if you go to my website, there's all this stuff. Like when somebody says, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I don't know. What day is it?" Um, so it's I'm always intrigued what's going to get said, and I invariably come away from an introduction kind of going, "Ooh, she sounds kind of cool." Right? So that's a good thing. So whatever you pick, right? I'm gonna walk away going, "Ooh, that's cool." Which does actually relate to today, and later on I'll connect it back. I'm not just wandering aimlessly, although I am very good at that. Um, a couple weeks ago was talking harnessing the power of our differences. And so what we're going to do for 3 weeks is kind of take a deeper dive into that, which in order to do that, I don't go diving alone. So I'm going to invite you to with me, which means I may ask for you, if you're comfortable, to turn your cameras on, because part of there's an individual and collective component to being in our world, to creating a world that works for all, to living out, what was on the slide earlier, a vision and mission. And of course, you are welcome to keep it off. I know that for some people, if internet is kind of sketchy, it's better to have it off, or you're still in your jammies and they're not the most exciting jammies, or maybe the jammies are too exciting. So you want to keep the camera off. I got it. And I will invite people from time to time to turn it on, so that we can connect. And I am going to invite people to, if you have access to it, I'll be asking questions and things along the way to into the chat, because I do want to be. I'm never a big fan of one directional. Like I just talk at you, and then 18.75 minutes go by, and then we're done. That's not really doesn't that doesn't I don't know, maybe a little selfishly motivated, but I want interaction. I want conversation. So um, that's just give you fair warning before we get started. So the last time I was here, a couple weeks ago, was talking about the power of our differences, and harnessing that power. We tend to look at our, when there are differences, and you can call it tension, you can call it conflict, you can call it differences, dilemma, paradox, polarities. There's a lot of words for these tensions that we can wind up in, and these, where we're, that friction and bumping up against each other, that we think we're supposed to, is it this or this? And really where we're needing to move ourselves is into a both and. Like, how do I hold, the perspective that's different from mine? And I don't even necessarily like the word hold anymore, but how do I be in the presence and have space for perspectives that are different than mine, especially if the difference is enough where inside I can go, but it's just wrong, right? And but how do I we often in our and I see this in unity, and actually not just unity, but I can talk to unity and in spiritual communities, that um to this unconscious, unexamined assumption that if I understand, that means I'm agreeing. And that's not, so there's a paradox. Okay. Those are two different things. They're both positive. We need them both. But you notice there's a little bit of tension between them. The understanding, an agreement, and even like understanding and acceptance, right? They're two positive values that kind of bump up against each other. And sometimes in our confusion, when we're kind of activated, I think I have to pick one or the other. But more often than not, in the title was "Seeing is Relieving," right? When I have the capacity to, and I'll walk through a little bit more of it and kind of give you some homework. Never leave a talk without homework. um don't worry, although I am coming back next week, maybe I should grade it. No, Just kidding. But I will invite you into, I know some people are like, wait, what? I didn't know you were going to make me work today. But we will, what we talk about today, we certainly will pick up on next week and then the following week, because it's all of it. So thinking about that there's these tensions, right? Um, and in the example that, when I sent in a description, I was using the example of a bully, right? And I think that's I used that one specifically because there's a lot of I think a lot of us have experienced what we would call bullying behavior, at least here in the US throughout, even before the pandemic started. And it seems like the more difficult and challenging, and as we sort of worked through our resilience stores and kind of the buckets running on empty a little bit, it became harder and harder, and we really can have a lot of trouble seeing beyond what someone is doing that we don't approve of, right? Or that is not, that we would see as um, we're just difficult seeing beyond the behavior that we find, that we see as bullying, or we see it as disruptive, we see it as harmful or hurtful or violent, whatever we have for it. So I want to unpack that a little bit more, but I want to kind of, one of the things that that really, so when I said seeing is relieving, try anything, that's a little bit of the kind of the homework, try anything. And where I got that from was the movie. If you've ever seen the movie Zootopia, that's where what I'm about to say comes from that. If you haven't seen Zootopia, you got to go see Zootopia. It's a animated movie and it's all animals. So it's this animal metropolis where they all, it's very funny because it's all animals, but it's very human. The personalities and such. But there's this little rabbit who Judy Hopps, who becomes the first the first little rabbit to join the police force, and she very quickly learns how tough it is to enforce law when you're about this big and the rest of the world is this big. But she's determined to prove herself, and so she just keeps plodding forward. And then she winds up working with this a fox. His name is Nick Wilde, and he's wily, and he actually makes her job even harder. And kind of one of the things about the movie is that is this the one of the teachings is that we can all live peacefully together, whether you're an herbivore or a carnivore, right? Because imagine a fox working with a rabbit. Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's lunch, right? Um, but it's one of these. It's a movie that just partly, in part, it is to teach us that we can live peacefully together, whether herbivore or carnivore, and take it a step further, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of class, regardless of sexual expression and identity. And so the song that kind of wraps up the movie, and there's a lot of other things that go on in the movie, but that it's very metaphysical. Let me put it that way. Although you could make anything metaphysical, but the ending song, the song at the end of the movie, is called "Try Anything" by the artist Shakira, and there's just some lines in there that are, I think, really call us to this seeing is relieving piece. And she says, I messed up tonight. I lost another fight. I lost to myself, but I'll try again. I'll start tomorrow. I keep falling down. I keep getting up. I take a breath. I don't beat myself up. I don't have to run fast. It's about pausing, recognizing I can fail. I can make new mistakes, and it's all okay. It's the try anything. Now, I don't mean try anything like push harder through it. I mean, try anything in terms of, oh, I can give myself large doses of grace, let myself off the hook, right? So, excuse me, coming back to the seeing is relieving, take a minute and think about, um, somebody in your life that really, whether you're friends with them or not, you're close with them or not, it could be family, it could be coworker, it could be somebody in church, where you really have this, where you're bumping up against. really pretty hard, and where you're really challenged by their perspective um, on something. And it could be somebody you don't know, or a group of people. But so think of that for a minute. That there's the behavior that you're like, I don't get it. It's just wrong. And we all have that. I mean, we might aspire to something else, right? I love aspiring to things, and I'm not there, right? I have a real here in the US, I have a real challenge with some people that are in political office that are fighting hard to get policy in place to make it harder for Black people to vote. I am seriously challenged by that. And I don't, there is no seeing beyond the bullying. There, for me, there is no seeing in moments, right? At times for long stretches. So take a minute and think about someone, you know them or not, or a group, and notice what comes up for you when you see them just in that behavior. Um, just in the bullying behavior, just in the you're wrong, or how they treat their whomever, or whatever it is they say. And it's important that you find someone just for the purposes of this, right? Is so that we can start to see what is this idea of seeing is relieving, try anything kind of thing. So pause for a minute when you have somebody in the chat, if you can, um, put when you think about the person, what are some of the thoughts that come to mind, or the group of people, or the organization, and put them in. If you have access to the chat, put them in there. Not the most, not your pink frosting, how you would like to be, but what are some of the thoughts that are just, where you go, yeah, that's not working for me. Anger, fear for my safety, anger, fear, frustration. Yeah, yeah. What about the person? Anger and unfairness. Yeah, they're just wrong. They're harmful. Yeah, sadness, definitely. Distrust. Yep, they are wrong. I don't care what anybody says. They're wrong. Betrayal. Ooh, yeah. And you kind of feel it. Incompetent, passing the buck, power hungry. Yeah. Yep. What the hell are you thinking? Yes. Misunderstood. Yeah. And the more, here's the irony kind of in unity and in our teachings and practices, as I read these, selfish, betrayal, hurt, as I read these and I'm reading them out loud, you can feel that uh rising, right? You can feel it. And sometimes we have a tendency to go, oh, no, 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 I don't want to feel those things. But the fact that we feel them means that it is alive. And so our work, and this is where seeing is relieving, that, what we self-serving, egocentric, how can you be like that? Self-centered, stubborn. Yes. As I read them, feel it. For so I do anyway, I can feel that energy rising. And I can also at the same time be like, back off. I want to, no, no, I don't want to feel that way, and push it away. And yet, in order to harness the power of the differences, um, I need to engage this because this gives me information. I don't want to live there, right? I don't want to build my house there, at least with a cement foundation. Maybe I pitch my tent for a day or so. But it's part of this practice of it's not this person or that person. It's not, this person's belief or mine. Is there a place for the both and the place that I go with that is that I look at, when I notice that I'm holding, someone in this place of like, what is wrong with you? And you're being so self-centered and ego, or even if you're doing something wrong, illegal or harmful or potentially harmful, and having people feel unsafe and everything, my brain goes to, I want justice, right? I want justice. I want fairness. I want someone to, this is what goes on for me here in the US with some, like the example I gave you, is I want justice. This is not okay. How can you do that? Right? And yet at the same time, I know, and usually with justice, it's about accountability, right? If you're, there is an accountability factor for ourselves and others, but um, I'm looking at this person and this, bully, so to speak. Excuse me. I want justice. I want justice for those that are wronged. I want accountability. I want them to stop what they're doing. I want to hold the person accountable. I want to redirect them, right? And at the same time, I have to pause and remember that there's this, we have sometimes lip service that I behold the Christ and all. Yep, not today. Not with this bully, not gonna happen. No way. It might be in there somewhere, but no. I I'll fess up, and in order for me to I hear it, I know it, and um, pausing long enough to recognize that this person that is the bully, this person that needs, you know, to be held to justice and accountability, is also a fellow human that is potentially lovable by me, which is a huge, like, really? Do I have that capacity? And that's known as mercy, right? Seeing completely is this combination of justice and mercy. That if you just kind of sit with it for a moment, you can feel the tension between justice and mercy, right? When I say mercy, what do you if you have access to the chat, what do you think of when I say mercy? What comes up? Compassion, forgiveness, compassion, kindness, grace, divine seeing. Yeah, forgiveness for self and other, reconciliation, curiosity. Yeah. And as I'm saying the words, can you feel that energy, kind of restorative justice? Can you feel that energy within yourself? Um, Seeing beyond the behavior? Yeah, absolutely. There's more room in my heart. There's more openness. There's deeper under. Yes, yes. And when I say justice, what comes up? When I say the word owning my judgment, fairness, when I say justice, what pops up for you? Equality, respect for all, accountability. Oh, inadequate system. Hope. Yeah, justice has a the most expensive lawyer. It's funny. Restorative, becoming more aware, a wider perspective. Justice has this is a different value than mercy. And it very often we just find ourselves that, there's a huge piece of justice that's about fairness and accountability that isn't necessarily a part of mercy. That mercy is just compassion, right? Mercy is this kindness, mercy is this openness, mercy is this, everything you guys said. Um, deeper understanding, more room in my heart, seeing beyond the behavior, all of that. Um, and then justice. So take a minute and just, you know, in your mind and kind of in your body, feel the word justice and mercy, and see if you can feel that tension that's between the two, or maybe wanting to, like, I'm supposed to pick one or the other. And kind of how you feel yourself dancing. Well, is it this or that? But both feels a little uncomfortable. Um, so that's a little bit. But the reason I presence those two is because um, if we really if we believe that so our first principle is, well, actually, our first principle the last couple years in Unity is you need to unmute yourself. Before that, Unity first principle was there's one presence and one power, right? And then the second one is you're it, right? That you are this, you are fully human and fully divine. And if we believe that, then can I see beyond the bullying, right? Can I see beyond what's the wrongness? Can I see beyond what you're doing that's dangerous? Can I see beyond what you're doing is harmful and hurtful? All the things that my judgments about it. And it's okay to have the judgments as long as I own them and I see them, right? So can I see beyond? Can I recognize that this fellow human being, you know, has the potential to be loved by me? If not, that's okay. Just own that place too. But what happens is in order to get there, I need to see the person completely. And as long as I just sort of hang out in there's got to be justice, right? And this accountability. And as long as there's justice, and justice is a good thing. We can overdo it, right? And the same thing with mercy. Mercy is a good thing. I can overdo it, but in being in both, how do I see, um, something that's just kind of ongoing, right? How can I see beyond the behavior? And that's the invitation with everybody in our lives that we find difficult. There is a natural tension, that goes on in our relationships. And the minute I can pause and kind of go, oh, that's what that is. Oh, I can step back, right? And wonder what's gone on. That's a piece of mercy, right? You ever, I don't, I'm going to ask for a thumbs up in the camera on this one. Is Give me a thumbs up if you, oh, now the question just went from my head. COVID brain. Um, yeah, never mind. It'll come back. So, so coming back to this seeing as we're leaving, oh, now I remember the question. So give me a thumbs up if you know, if you've ever been around someone and don't even know, you might just be witnessing something going on where you're like, wow, that person is really, how does that person talk to people that way? I usually find that when I'm out at, in a public place and I hear someone, how they're talking to their children or their spouse or the grocery clerk checking them out. And I think, oh my gosh, how do you speak to people that way? Like, do you hear yourself? So the question is have you ever been around in that kind of scenario and then pause and wonder what has to go on in their life for them to be that way, right? So give me a thumbs up if you've ever had that experience. Yeah, yeah, yep. So that's kind of the seeing is relieving. That's what that is when we pause to go, oh, so what goes on in someone's life that brings them to this place of how they're being that's not compassionate, that's not kind, that is, harmful, that is bullying. And at the same time, the justice, bringing in the justice piece. Because it isn't just, it's not solely the mercy, right? That's an action of mercy. Um, but it's also justice, the accountability. Um, think of another way to think about justice is well-being, right? Well-being for all, well-being for all. And so these are actually natural tensions that go on. What keeps us from moving into expanding the picture and I'm going to share a slide with you, I think. Here we go. So when you look at this, is she turning to her left or is she turning to her right? And whichever one you choose, whichever one to you it looks like she's turning to the left or right, can you supplement your initial view with an alternate view, right? Like, can you add to your view? So how many you see? Yeah, if you move if some people see both, like if you look away, then you come back. So sometimes, oh wait, she changed direction. So put a thumbs up if if she was turning left. Okay. And then put a thumbs up if she was turning right at some point. Yeah, I know it changed, but but notice that, yeah. Oh, look, you all did that. I love it. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna go. I have to move here now. Y'all put smiley faces on your thumbs. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay. So um that is the seeing is relieving, right? And so it's the when you can expand, can you see beyond the behavior? I get to have a judgment. I get to have my feelings. I get to be upset. And what, you know, yeah. So Debbie put in the chat, instead of asking what's wrong with you, consider the question, what happened to you? Instead of me going, you're what's wrong with me, expanding mine. So what is it that's going on in your world that here you are showing up this way? And again, like I said at the very beginning, understanding that doesn't mean I agree with it, doesn't mean I accept it. It means I'm willing to see a little bit larger, right? And I think there gives we have a sense of relief when that happens, right? We move ourselves out of here's this little story about the person, and well, maybe there's a little more. Maybe there's our brains just automatically go to what's familiar, what's likable, kind of what's easy. We make quick judgments. It's just part of what our brain does. Seeing is relieving. So come back to Judy Hopps, our little rabbit police officer, and try anything. And I say try anything as a way not to work harder and push through, but as a way to pause and try anything, meaning there's probably a whole lot more to this than I realize. And notice where justice and mercy are at play. Notice where there's understanding and agreement, right? These opposites that are at play that I'm dancing through. Am I trying to find an either or, response? Notice the times where, being direct in my communication or maybe being a little more diplomatic, right? And doing both. Um, Noticing uh, where because there's a lot of these kind of opposites that go on when we can see them. Oh, got it, right? um, maybe it's a time for to be contemplative, right? And maybe other times it's a time to be in action. Maybe with someone like that there's a time for listening and a time for speaking. Right now I'm starting to sound like Ecclesiastes, which is Ecclesiastes 3 is just a treasure trove of polarities of paradox. Okay, so why don't we take that? I think I've been gabbing way too long. Let's take this into meditation.